Hey everyone, welcome to week 6 of distance learning. I'm your host. Just kidding. And anyway, so a couple things that I wanted to do. Number one, I missed you guys. This is just getting a lot. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say other than this social distancing and quarantine kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So here we are. Okay, so what I want to talk to you guys about today is number one, drinking my diet Dr. Pepper today. It's a little late in the day, so I've a little start to the caffeine kick, but good thing is we got it going, so cheers to that. And so that's the first thing. And then, of course, I want to do a show us your vault segment. This one's not, I won't even say it. Anyways, this is my wedding bouquet. So I opted out of, today is Battle of Flowers, by the way, so I thought this was like in theme, because I didn't have, like for my bouquet, when I walked down the aisle, I did not have like a traditional flower bouquet. My bridesmaids had flower bouquets and the groomsmen had like flower boutonnieres, but I chose to have a beautiful, that's funny. This is called a brooch bouquet. So all of these we purchased, they're not like real God. It's really heavy. My best friend Shannon made it for me. So this is how they like toss the bouquet at the end of a wedding, the bride does. We did not toss this. I had a whole separate bouquet for that because this would have not been good to throw up in the air because it probably weighs about 3 pounds. But anyways, I thought I'd show that. It's on display in my home. This little one just fell off. Get some glue on that, but got an owl brooch because my sorority mascot was an owl. My sorority sisters were my wedding, and my maid of honor was like my best friend from college who was also in my sorority. So just fun little thing to show. And all right, next thing I want to talk to you guys about is Google Classroom. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. I know a lot of you probably already utilize this feature, which that's great. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard me refer to the to-do list in Google Classroom. So if you're not familiar with where that is, when you log into Classroom, yours will obviously look a little different than mine, but you should have this menu button right here. If you click on this and you go to the classes, so like these are all the classes I'm teaching, so that's why, but like these are all the classes that I'm enrolled in as a student, and I click on my to-do list, I can see all of the things that I have missing. There's obviously something here that didn't have a due date. So anyways, you can look at that. Mine is going to look a little different than yours because I'm in one class that like actually is assigning assignments. I'm in this Bolster's like class just as like a fake student so that I could help her with Google Classroom. But if you use this drop-down list, all of your classes that you're enrolled in and you can look at it by class instead of looking at it with all of your classes in one list. That might be a little overwhelming. But what I wanted to show you guys for my class was something else, because I give you guys 3 assignments, right? Assignment 1 is this ed puzzle. Assignment 2 will be the EverFi module, and assignment 3 is another assignment that I've created. You need to do them in order because as you all know who've done this with me for now weeks, know that in the ed puzzle, I give you guys really great instructions on how to do those assignment 3. And, if you don't watch the ed puzzle and you were just trying to do assignment 3, I mean, you might do okay, but you could probably do better if you were to watch the ed puzzle and watch me go through it. So if you click on the class, okay, my class, let's say you're in first period, You might also be used to finding assignments through the stream, because as soon as I post the assignments, they're going to be boom, boom, boom right here in the stream. But they may not post in order, or you may be going and finding your assignments in your email, because as you all know, whenever any of your teachers post something in Google Classroom, it gets sent to your email. I don't like that because, again, like this stream can be pretty overwhelming depending on who the teacher is. I don't post announcements and all that. I just post the assignments. But as y'all all know about me too, I'm pretty organized. So here's my trick for you. If you come over here to this classwork tab, you may have never gone here before, and that's okay. Okay, come over here to classwork. If you go to classwork, everything is in here organized by week. So if you're looking for a specific assignment that you're missing from a specific week, you can go and find it very easily. Like if you get a remind text from me or something and I'm like, hey, you're missing the assignment 2 from week 2. Well, if you tried to find that in the stream, that, you're going to be scrolling, you might scroll past it by accident. It's just harder to find. If you come to classwork and you're like, okay, she said week 2. Okay, so this is week 5, week 4, week 3, up week 2. I'm missing assignment 2. Boom, there's assignment 2 under week 2. This might be more helpful in regards to my class finding assignments that you might be missing, or assignments that I've returned to you to redo because you didn't get a 70 or higher. That is probably my biggest push for you guys going forward, because as we keep building, the stream is going to get longer and longer and longer. And if you need to go find something from way back, from a week way back, the stream might not be the best place to find it. This classwork tab will be the best place to find it. Okay, so that's my tidbit. Okay, new codes in Google Classroom. I know some of y'all have been texting me and asking me about those. I didn't want to talk about them until you guys had a lot of time to, get kind of used to those, and maybe your other teachers were sending out stuff. So let's talk about what the new codes mean, and then specifically what they mean for my class. I mean, they mean the same thing for all of your classes. Okay, let's start with proficient. PR, that equals a smiley face. To me, that means you did all 3 assignments and you did them for a 70 or higher. You scored a 70 or higher on all 3 assignments. So for the week, like week 5, week 4, week 3, week 2, week 1, you got a PR. That means you did your work and you did it to a 70 standard or higher. That's great. You want PRs for the week. Yay. Okay. APR, approaching, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to, I don't know. Did I tell you that PR stands for proficient? Proficient. APR stands for approaching proficient, also equals a smiley face. You will see this code in the T4 column. T4 stands for term 4, 4th quarter, 4th 9 weeks, okay? Approaches, meaning you are approaching proficient. You haven't reached the end of the 9 weeks. So I can't say that you are 100% proficient in all of the, because we haven't covered the full 9 weeks of content yet. So it will stay approaches until the end of the 9 weeks. We'll get to that. Third code, I. I stands for incomplete. Bads, frowny face, okay? If you did not do 1 or more assignments for a week, you currently have an I for that week. If you have done nothing since we've gone to distance learning, you also have an I in the T4 column. That's really bad. If you have an I for the T4 column, that's not good. Not good at all. If you have an I for 1 week, it's not good. That just means you're missing an assignment from that particular week, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me and ask me what that assignment is, okay? What else do I want to say about that? Okay, so at the end of the 9 weeks, so when we get to the end of all this, I'm going to take a look at your third 9 weeks average, and then what you've done in the fourth 9 weeks, which you're not going to get a numerical grade for the fourth 9 weeks. And I'm going to kind of, in my teacher magic way, average them together to decide, did you master the content for the second semester? Did you complete enough work? Did you do enough to prove to me that you deserve a credit for the class? If you did, then you'll see for T4 and for the semester that you're going to get proficient. If you didn't, like if you didn't do much third 9 weeks, if you didn't do well the third 9 weeks, you failed the third 9 weeks, and then fourth 9 weeks you just didn't get it together and you are missing a ton of work, you haven't completed your work, then you will get an I for the fourth 9 weeks and an I for the second semester, which means you will not get credit for my class. That is not okay. This class is not hard. It's just not. This content is not challenging. I give you tons of support. I give you tons of examples, tons of opportunity to turn stuff in. I'm obviously not counting stuff super late. So, if you're missing something, go back and do it. So yeah, those are the new codes. If you have questions about those new codes, please feel free to send me a text or email or Google Classroom. But that's that. Okay, so I went over the codes. All right, let's talk about what you're going to do this week. So, EverFi, we're going to be doing this module here called Consumer Skills. It's not a challenging module. You're going to go over why it's important to be an informed consumer, because it's your job to be informed. It's no one else's job to inform you. You need to do your research before you purchase anything online, before you purchase anything in person. I mean, they'll talk more about that. No one's going to do that research for you. So if you go to the car lot and you buy a lemon and it breaks down a week later, that's on you. There's tons of resources available to you online for you to, that's just one example. That's, furniture, that's anything that you purchase. Do your research, go online, look at reviews, go ask people feedback. Be an informed consumer is basically the message that you're going to get from this module. Specifically, they're going to talk about renting a home versus owning a home. And some of y'all might be living in a situation where you are renting. Maybe you live in a house, but your parents don't own the home. They are renting it. Y'all are renters. You're leasing it. Or maybe you live in a house and you own the home. Your parents purchased that home. You could also be renting an apartment, renting a condo. You could own a condo. So there's all kinds of different options, and it just depends on everybody's situation's different. If you're renting, it doesn't mean that, that's bad. It's just the choice that your family decided to make. And then we'll talk about leasing versus owning a vehicle. Okay, so that's what this module will discuss today. So let's get into that specifically. So again, this is the module Consumer Skills. If you haven't done any of these other modules, please go back and redo those, or not redo, do them for the first time. Oh, also with this Edpuzzle video, I'm finding that if you don't watch it till the very end, even if you ask, I'm trying to rush so that I don't keep you guys here. Even if you answer the very last question and there's still like 2 seconds left of like me just trying to click out of the video, just watch those 2 seconds, because then Edpuzzle doesn't count that you've watched the whole thing. I know it's wild. Just hang on for those 2 more seconds and just watch the whole video in its entirety, because otherwise it won't count it and it won't push it through that you've done it. And then I have to chase you down and all that stuff, and you're confused like, oh no, I did. And you technically did. Anyways, just watch the whole video is all I'm saying. Okay. Renting versus owning. Okay, my face is covering over here. All right, let's start with, we're going to look at some advantages and disadvantages. If you want to take pictures of slides so that I can help you on these questions on the Edpuzzle, I feel free. You do you, utilize your resources as much as you can. So we're going to talk first about renting versus owning a place to live, okay? All right, so renting, again, you can rent a home, like a house. You can rent an apartment. You can rent a condo. Those are all options of places to live that you could rent. Okay, so advantages and disadvantages. Advantages to renting versus purchasing and owning. Rent payments are usually lower than a mortgage. So when you own a home, it's called a mortgage versus when you rent, it's called rent. So that's kind of a vocab word that you'll probably want to remember. So when you rent, your rent is lower because when you own, you have the mortgage usually includes taxes, because we have to pay taxes, and sometimes your homeowner's insurance is wrapped up into your mortgage payment as well. So you don't have to have insurance. You can, it's an option when you rent, but it's not required. So rent can be lower. Repairs, when something breaks in the apartment or in the home that you're renting, it's not your responsibility to pay for those. I have actually never rented. I went from living with my parents to purchasing my first townhouse to then purchasing the home that we live in now with my husband. But, you know, like if you were living, I had obviously friends that lived in apartments. So when their like dishwasher broke or their washing machine wasn't working, they would just call their landlord and the landlord was required to come out and fix it. Or if like the AC went out, whew, you know, that's a pretty large expense, but that would not be your responsibility because you're the renter. Now, if you cause damage to something and that caused something to break, that in turn can be your responsibility. But if something's just, you know, stuff just breaks down over time. So, you know, if a fan wasn't working or, you know, something like that, like the landlord would come out and fix it. You have a lot of flexibility when you rent. You can, you know, usually you sign at least a 1-year lease, meaning you're stuck in that apartment for that 1 year. You can break a lease, but you'll have to pay a significant sum of money to break a lease. So it's not advantageous for you to do that. But if push comes to shove and you needed to move out or you needed to leave, you have the flexibility to do that. And then after the 1-year lease is up, you can decide at that point, you're like, hey, you know, like I like living here. I like this apartment complex, or I like this home. I'm going to go ahead and sign another 1-year lease. Or you can decide, I'm going to try somewhere else. I'm going to look to see if I can find somewhere that has more amenities, like, or that has less, you know, that the rent is lower. So you have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to renting. And there really is the upfront costs to moving into an apartment are relatively low compared to purchasing a home. I know I talked about last week about how moving out is so expensive. It truly, truly is. But it's not as it's more expensive to move out and purchase a home versus moving out and renting an apartment or renting a home. They're both expensive. It's just renting is going to be lower than if you were purchasing. So, all right, disadvantages. You can't change the property. So, some people, like, usually this applies more for like apartment complexes, but like if you don't like the countertops, it's not like you could just change the countertops. I mean, they won't let you do that. If you don't like the paint, most places won't let you paint the walls. So there's, you know, you can't change like light fixtures and stuff like that. So you don't have the flexibility to make it your own. You kind of just have to accept it for what it is. Again, that's, you know, each place that you rent will be different. Some places are like, sure, you can paint the walls bright pink, but whenever you move out, you have to paint them back to the original color. So there's that. When you are renting, you're not building what we call equity. So equity is essentially value in the thing that you have. So land, homes, they all appreciate in value, meaning they grow in value, they increase in value. You don't get that when you're renting. So essentially you're just paying, you know, your landlord, you're just borrowing this place. It's almost like when you stay in a hotel, right? Like you're just paying for the time that you stayed there. When you move out, you're not getting any of that money back. zero. I mean, you might get a deposit back if you had to put down a deposit, but you're not getting any of that rent back. It's all just flown out the window. So you're not building any value or any equity when you're renting. Rents can increase. Lease agreements, landlords can choose to increase the rent. So once your lease is up, if you were to sign another lease with that same place, they might say, okay, that's fine, but the rent's going to go up on, another $50 or $100. And then, again, you have the flexibility to decide if you're like, no, I don't like that. So that landlords do have the ability to do that. It's not legal to do that in the middle of a lease. They can't just, up and decide to just change the rent on you. Like in the middle of a lease agreement, they can do that though once you are out of one lease agreement and choosing to maybe enter into another one. And then lastly, you're not improving your credit score by living in an apartment. We haven't really talked about that yet, but your credit score is basically it's kind of like your grade, right? Like think of it as like your GPA. When you're in high school, you kind of travel around with this GPA, and it gives you kind of an idea and people an idea of like what kind of student you are. Your credit score follows you around your whole life, much longer than your GPA, and tells creditors, tells lenders, tells banks, tells employers, tells people in general what kind of person you are. Meaning, do you pay your bills on time? Things like that. So if you aren't paying your rent, that can actually very much hurt your credit score. But there's nothing, if you pay your rent every single month on time, you're not going to see your credit score go up from that. Renting can only cause your credit score to go down if you're not paying your rent on time. So, okay, owning a home. So when you go to purchase your very first home, whether that be purchasing a condo or a home, you don't purchase apartments. That's just not a real option that exists. So whenever you're going to purchase something, you're usually going to purchase like a townhouse, like a condo, or like a home, like an actual standalone house, right? That has like your own garage and backyard and things. So advantages, obviously it's a great long-term investment. You're going to only increase in value. Land, homes appreciate in value, so that's always a good thing. So that, you purchased it, let's say like this house that we live in right now, we probably purchased it for right under $250,000. Every year we get like a notification from Bexar County saying like what our home's valued at for that current year. And, the last time we got that notification, I think it was worth like, I can't remember, like $255,000 or $260,000. So over the 5 years that we've lived here, our home has increased by $10,000. So that, if we wanted to sell it today, we could sell it for the increased value, meaning we would walk away with making $10,000, that's the huge benefit of owning versus renting a home. Same thing, you're building equity, that $10,000 that I just said. So we bought at $250,000, we could sell now for $260,000. That $10,000 is the equity that we've put into the home. You can build equity just by doing nothing, because land, like I said, and homes just appreciate in value over time. But let's say we put in like a really sick pool in our backyard, that will also help build our equity, because pools are, they increase the value of the home more than if you didn't have a pool. So, or if we put in like super fancy granite countertops, that helps build equity. We get tax benefits from owning a home, better privacy. Like obviously, if you've ever lived in an apartment before, sometimes you've got you can have noisy neighbors. You can hear people walking up and down stairs, people upstairs, downstairs. You can hear all that sometimes. So that's kind of annoying. When you have a mortgage or own a home, it's the monthly payments are the same every single month until you pay off your mortgage. And a mortgage is so obviously you're borrowing this money to purchase this home. Nobody has, we didn't have $250,000 saved in our savings account just to purchase this home in cash. So we had to borrow that from the bank. and the bank will ask you, do you want the mortgage term to be 15 years or 30 years? Do you want to pay off your home in 15 years, or do you want to draw it out and pay for it over 30 years? We chose 30, and that made our monthly payments obviously a lot lower than if it were 15. So now the benefit to 15-year mortgage is you're paying it off a lot sooner. So, you just have to, but anyways, regardless of the fact, your monthly payments are the same every single month. And then you have stability. Just stability in your home. That it's going to be like if you got into some trouble, you could always sell your home, and more than likely you're going to sell it for more than what you bought it for. So that's nice. And, it just kind of gives you that sense of ownership that you don't have when you're renting. So there's no shade to renting. I hope I'm not like coming across that way. It's just, again, everyone's family is going to make different decisions. Disadvantages. Ooh, it's very expensive to purchase a home. You've got to put down a down payment. Usually that's about 10% of what the total cost. So if you do 10% of $250,000, we had to have that in cash money to purchase our home. So that's you would need that much money to rent. So it's high upfront cost is definitely one of the disadvantages. Less mobility. So you own it. You're in this mortgage agreement with the bank for 15 to 30 years. Now you can sell it whenever you want. You can put it up on the market. But, it's not like you don't want to be doing that every year. I mean, that's a big pain. You can't just like up and go, right? You can't just break your mortgage and go. Like you can break your lease and go. Or after the year, decide that you want to, go to a different neighborhood or go to a different apartment complex. So, that's definitely a disadvantage. Ooh, the maintenance cost. So anytime anything breaks around here, guess who's responsible for that? We are. I'm trying to think of the most recent thing that our garage door was broken. Something with our garage door wasn't working. So we had to get somebody to come out and fix that for us. I mean, that was an expense that we had to pay for since we're the owners. Now, obviously we have insurance to help us out with some things. So if like a natural disaster were to come through, like a really bad hailstorm, and we had hail damage to our roof, the insurance would cover that for us. And that's why we pay for insurance. And we, again, haven't talked about that yet, which we will eventually, but just little things here and there. Like we've had leaks before and we had to get that fixed. I mean, those are all things that can just add up over time. And we don't have a landlord that we can just call. We are essentially our own landlords. Equity doesn't grow immediately, so it takes time. Like I said, we've lived here for 5 years, so it's not like it's just immediately. Sometimes you can get a really good deal on a home and enter into a home that already has built-in equity if you just got it listed for or sold it for a really great deal. But in general, equity takes a long time. Property values can fall. It's not normal for property values to fall. More times than not, property is always appreciating in value, but there are times like just, different times during the stock market and things like that can cause property values to fall. I can't think of any other real examples that would, it's not common. It's really not common for that to happen, but it can. So I'm just going to put it in the disadvantages because I be very transparent with you that it can happen. It's not likely. And then illiquidity, a very fancy word. To have something be liquid means you can change it into cash really quickly. So a disadvantage of owning a home is that it cannot be turned into cash quickly because there's a process of selling your home that takes, you can't just sell a home and have all the paperwork done, transfer of ownership, keys in the other owner's hands in like weeks. I mean, it takes months to do that. So that's why I say illiquidity. A home cannot be transferred over into cash, sold for cash quickly. It has, it just takes time. Okay, that was renting versus owning. Moving on to leasing versus owning a vehicle. So kind of similar situation. Leasing is just another word for renting. I mean, I know if you've ever gone on vacation before, you might have rented a car for like a short period of time. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about renting from like, Avis or something. That's not the same thing. But leasing versus owning a vehicle, okay? So I need to make sure that you guys understand that leasing does not mean like when you go on vacation and you need to rent a car, or like you get into a car accident and you have to rent a car for a short period of time because your car is in the shop. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about leasing, okay? This is just another option for when you are ready to purchase your own car. You have the option of leasing versus owning. So leasing advantages. When you lease a car, the monthly payments tend to be lower, which is always a big advantage. Usually lease agreements will come with better warranty protection. So basically instead of owning the car and like it's yours, it's in your name, again, I hate to say the word rent because I know y'all are I don't want y'all to get confused with like renting a car when you're on vacation. It's like, you're just kind of borrowing it for a long period of time. It's not ever yours. And eventually usually lease agreements are 2 to 3 years. So at the end of your lease agreement, you'll turn that car over back to the dealership, and the dealership will give you the option to trade that car in for like a newer model or another car. And then you lease again and you lease again and you lease again. So better warranty protection. So if something goes wrong, like the AC goes out in your car unexpectedly, or, and these are brand new cars, obviously. So when things like that happen, tires need to be replaced, things like that, the warranty will usually protect you when you're leasing the vehicle. You get to get a new car every 2 to 3 years, which is a huge bonus. So people who are, who like to have the newest and greatest thing, they like to lease because that means they're guaranteed to get something new and improved every 2 to 3 years. So, full transparency, I've been very transparent with all of my other stuff. We do not lease. My parents never taught me that was a good idea. No shade if your parents do lease. It's just, I was always just taught that was not a good option. We don't lease now, we don't lease the cars that we have now. So that's just, again, full transparency. Disadvantages to leasing a vehicle. In order to get approved for a lease, you have to have a stable and predictable income, because if you work somewhere that, the job growth predictions are not good for that job, then they may not approve you to lease a vehicle from them. There are strict mileage limits. So every lease that you'll decide, I'm going to lease this car for 2 years. Okay, that's what you've decided. You've agreed upon that in the lease agreement, and then you'll decide on what is your mileage limit going to be. So, of course, they don't want you to go driving off into the sunset all cross country, during that 2 years. So they're going to limit you on how many miles you can put on your vehicle during that 2 years. And if you go over that limit, then you have to pay at the end. So they're going to look at your odometer and they're going to look to see how many miles you've driven. And if you've gone over, then you'll have to pay. And that's a huge disadvantage. Generally, you will pay more over time when you lease a vehicle, because essentially what happens is if you enter into one lease, and, let's say you leased, I don't know, a Toyota Tundra, and you leased, and that car was worth, when you leased it, it was worth $30,000. Well, unlike homes and property, vehicles depreciate in value. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth less than what it was the moment it was just sitting on the lot. So as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's starting to depreciate in value. It declines in value. So when you go and you're ready to get a new lease 2 years later, well, that Toyota Tundra that was worth $30,000 is now only worth $25,000 or $20,000. So you don't really have as much to work with to enter into the new lease. And you're probably going to want, let's say you really love Toyota Tundras, you're going to want the upgraded version of the Toyota Tundra. And, as we all know, price of cars just continue to go up. They depreciate in value, but the price tag continues to go up year after year. So it's just, that's why I've never thought leasing was a good idea for me. Just because, again, I don't care about having like the newest car every 2 to 3 years. But anyways, you will eventually pay. It's more money over time, just with all the fees and everything that go along with leasing. And you'll always have a payment. I told you on the last video that we paid off my Toyota Highlander a couple months ago. So, you know, we were paying $400 a month. That was my car payment. And we eventually paid that off. So now we just have an extra $400 a month to save, which is great. But if you're leasing and you continue to lease every 2 years or 2 to 3 years, you're always going to have a payment. Always. You'll never fully own that vehicle to where you won't have a payment. So, you know, if you're, to us, that's why owning for me is a better option, because I like to be able to eventually pay that car off, and then it still runs. It's a great vehicle. My Highlander, I don't foresee us selling that anytime soon. So that's just $400 every single month that we're not spending, which is a huge plus for us. Okay, so then owning a vehicle is another option. So ownership in any level is always a good thing. Okay. There's all kinds of great things that come with that. You can customize your car if you own it, whereas, you know, like I know some of y'all have parents who like to work on cars and customize them. I mean, if you leased a car or truck or vehicle, you know, you can't go in and put like, you know, really fancy tires or rims on it because it's not technically yours, versus if you owned it, you could go and do that, or you could upgrade the sound system in the vehicle. Or you could, you know, upgrade, I mean, all those things. I'm not familiar with cars, so I don't know what that's like. At the end of the time that you, like, so a car loan, you know, you usually go to the bank and ask to borrow money to purchase a car. And at the end of that car loan, you're done. Like when we paid off our Highlander, I paid my last $400 payment, and that was it. Versus a lease, when you get out of that lease, you could have some charges. Like I said, if you go over the mileage, or there were other fees, maybe there was damage done to the car, you might have to pay for some charges for that. So that's you won't have to do that if you own a vehicle. And then eventually when you pay off the loan, like I said, you have no more payments. And that's just money in the bank that you're not spending, like that $400 payment that I'm not paying every month anymore, because I've paid off that loan. I don't owe the bank any more money for that car. It is 100% mine. So that's nice. All right, disadvantages. Sometimes the monthly payments can be higher depending on the car. If you were going to lease a 2020 Toyota Tundra or purchase a 2020 Toyota Tundra, oh, that's a tongue twister, you're going to have a higher monthly payment on owning. Now, if you leased a 2020 Toyota Tundra and then purchased a 2016 Toyota Tundra, a used vehicle, then now we can look at like the lease monthly payment actually might be higher because it's a newer vehicle. So again, that's why it's important that you are an informed consumer and you do your research. If you buy a used vehicle, sometimes those don't come with warranties, or if you buy a brand new vehicle, it does come with a warranty. But once those warranties are done, and usually it does not last for the length of the time of the loan, those eventually will go away. It's usually like 1 to 2 years or something like that. You have to pay for all those things, like oil changes, tire rotations, purchasing new tires, changing the air filters, all those little maintenance things that you have to do when you have a car and drive a car. All of that is still your responsibility. Now, I will say that whether you're leasing a vehicle or owning a vehicle, you still have to have vehicle insurance. It's against the law to drive a vehicle, whether you're leasing or owning. If you're on the road driving a vehicle, you need to be covered with insurance. It is against the law to not have insurance. It does not matter if you lease or if you own. Again, like I said earlier, vehicles are a depreciating asset. So when you own it, like my Toyota Highlander, I probably bought for, oh God, it was so long ago. I want to say like maybe $24,000. It ain't worth $24,000. Y'all could all Kelly Blue Book that right now. I think it's a 2013 Toyota Highlander. And you go Kelly Blue Book it, and it's not worth that much. anymore. So when I go to sell it, I'll have to sell it for its depreciated value. If I tried to sell a 2013 Toyota Highlander for what I bought it for, nobody would buy it because it's not worth that anymore. So that's the disadvantage. Okay, so we've gone through that. I'm sure they'll have some other ways of talking about that in the EverFi module. So, but you may hear something else that I didn't cover, or they might cover it in a different way that makes you understand it a little bit better, which is the benefit to that. Okay, so assignment 3 is you're just going to kind of do some research. Again, like I said, it's important that you are an informed consumer. So you're going to do 3 things. There's 3 parts. You're going to look at renting an apartment in Stone Oak. Just you're researching what it costs to rent an apartment in Stone Oak. So you're going to do some research there. Part 2 is you're going to look at purchasing a car. So that some of y'all are going to have fun with that. You can literally look up any car you want. And then for those 2 cars that you research and find, you're going to calculate the monthly payment for them. And I give you a calculator to do that, and you're not going to have to do any kind of complicated math stuff. So I'm going to kind of go through this with you. And these, these white cells will be filled in with my examples. And as you all know, if it's blue, you're filling something in that box. There should be something in this, and if it's blue, you're putting some text in there somehow, okay? All right, so first thing is, I'm gonna close all this stuff so you guys don't need that anymore. I don't need that anymore. Okay, so I also have instructions here as well, so you don't have to, you have to keep watching the video, obviously, but okay, navigate to apartments.com. And the second step is going to ask you to type in Stone Oak. And it should, like it just did for me, auto-populate. Please excuse my dog. My husband's home from the grocery store, so he's super excited. It's going to auto-populate to Stone Oak / San Antonio. Go ahead and choose that. I'm just going to really quickly stop recording to let that. Okay, and we're back. So once you've typed that in, this is what's going to pull up. So this is the Stone Oak area. You'll see these apartment complexes here on the side. You can pick any one that you want. So I'm just going to choose the first one. Okay, so let's go back to the instructions. Find an apartment complex on the right-hand side. We did that. And then fill in the table below with the appropriate information. So the name of the apartment complexes is, again, just, you don't want to type that, you can. So I'm just trying to get you guys to kind of just see the price of renting in the area that you currently live in. And then it asks for the price of a 1-bedroom. So we scroll down here, you see a bunch of different options for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And they're all different prices, and the price will depend on the square feet. So this apartment here is 794 square feet. It's $1,115 a month, versus this one is smaller. It's 503 square feet, so therefore it's going to be a cheaper rent. I don't care which one you choose, just write or type one in. So I'm going to choose this one. So 1,000. So the 1,115. And the last one is the most important one. If you do not include a link to prove your information, this assignment will be returned ungraded, and it will be considered missing or incomplete until you complete it correctly. So all you have to do is come up here, copy that, or right-click, copy, and then right-click paste or Control-V. Done. Okay? So that's that. Okay, part 2, purchasing a car. So I'm going to close this, navigate to Auto Trader. Some of y'all have probably gone to this website before, and type in any make and model of vehicle. This is where you guys can kind of get fun and do some research on some cool cars. Doesn't matter. So if you click this drop down, it'll give you all the different types of cars. My dream car is a Volvo XC90. Let's see what it says about this zip code here, because I don't know what y'all's might be defaulted. If the zip code isn't yours, type in your zip code, 79258. So whatever your zip code is. And then you're going to click search. And then a bunch of those types of vehicles should pop up. Let's go back. And it says, fill in the table below with the appropriate information. And again, this caveat, if you don't include the link to prove your information, it will be returned to you ungraded and will be missing. So the make and model is a Volvo XC90. I'm going to look at the year. Let's look at this 2019. Okay, so it's a used 2019, but I'm going to put 2019. What's the mileage? Oh, it has, the mileage will be right here. So it has 9,989 miles. 9,989, that's pretty good. And then it costs 43. Let me put this in 43. And then again, link to the information. So I need to click on this so that it opens up the page specifically for this vehicle. Just going to come up here again, copy, and then paste. Oh, so it's going to do that. That's okay. No big deal. All right. Okay. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to do that 2 different times. So for 2 vehicles. So since there's 2 blue rows, that means you're going to do that twice for two totally different vehicles. So if you do a Volvo XC90, you have to do something completely different, even if it's a different year. You cannot do that same make and model again. Okay. All right. So then you're going to come down here and we're going to try to figure out how much it would cost to actually purchase these 2 vehicles that you have, that you've researched. So we can close this now. So it's going to say navigate to this Bank of America website. Now I will tell you, as soon as you try and go to this website, it's probably, like number 2 says, it's going to ask you to choose the state that you live in. I've already done this and gone through this process, so it didn't automatically ask me that, but it will more than likely ask you that. It'll be a little pop-up window and it'll just ask that you choose Texas as your state. So this is our calculator. So you're going to fill in all this information. And I gave you all of that information here. So in the total loan amount, right? So this Volvo that I would love to purchase, I don't have $43,000 in the bank. I'm going to, in my checking account or savings account, I'm going to have to go and borrow that from the bank. They're going to have to loan me the money. So I'm going to just copy this real quick. Just going to paste it. So it says in the total loan amount, type the cost of the vehicles from the table above. So exactly that. So the cost of this Volvo XC90 was this much. I'm going to come over here, paste that in. You don't have to type the dollar signs. Okay, term. So when you purchase a car or borrow money from the bank, they're going to ask you, how long do you want to borrow money from us? Or how long do you want the loan to be for? And it's always going to be in months because it's a monthly payment. A typical used car loan or car loan is usually about 5 years, which is 60 months if you did the math, 5 times 12. I purchased my Highlander and I financed it for 7 years. So I extended that longer so that my payment would be lower. That's just what we did. I paid it off before 7 years, which was excellent for my credit. But that's why we did that. So the loan, the dollar amount could be lower every month, but I could pay more every single month. Anyways, so let's see, what does it want us to do the term? So it says, in the term, leave at 60. So you're not going to type anything here. You're just going to leave it at 60. The interest rate. So, fun fact, borrowing money from the bank is not free. You may have borrowed money from a friend before and they let you borrow a couple dollars or whatever, and they just said, hey, pay me back whenever. Unfortunately, the bank is not like your best friend. They want to make money from you borrowing from them. So they will charge you interest. And that's how banks make their money. So I can't just borrow this dollar amount from the bank and they're not going to hand me that check over and say, hey, thanks, pay us back in 60 months. You're great. Oh no, they're gonna make their money too. So they're gonna charge me an interest rate. Now I haven't gone into credit scores with you guys yet, but when you turn 18, you automatically get a credit score. And it's just basically not you don't really have one. There's no way for anyone to judge whether or not you're a good credit risk because you've just turned 18. So usually your interest rates are going to be a little bit higher. So if you're going to turn 18, try and buy a new car by yourself, your interest rate's going to be higher, meaning it's going to cost you more to borrow money from the bank. If you get a co-signer, like with a parent or someone like that, then that might help get your interest rate down. So interest rates are like golf scores. You want them to be low when you're borrowing. Now, when you're saving, you want interest rates to be high. I know, it's confusing. Anyways, okay. So in the interest rate box, change this to 7%. So you're going to come over here, delete what was ever in there, and just type 7. Actually, type 7, so it looks like that. Not 7D, not 07, 7. Okay, and then it says press calculate payment. Oh, okay, so my payment for this vehicle, if I was financing it for 60 months, so 5 years, at a 7% interest rate, my payment would be $854 a month. My husband just said, no. So I would just come here. I'm going to type in $. Guys, the $sign goes before the number. I know when we're talking, we say $850, and so people tend to think that they put the $sign on the end. No, you put the $sign in the front. So just FYI. So you're going to go through that process like I just did, following these instructions for your 2 vehicles here. Okay, that's it, and that's assignment 3. Right, if you have questions, reach out. I might ask you to Zoom with me just so I can see your screen to make sure that you're doing it right. But other than that, it should be pretty self-explanatory. All right, see you guys next week. Oh, is there anything else I want to say? Wow, that was really up close, sorry. No, I don't think so. I don't have any dad jokes for you guys. All right, so anyways, all right, bye.